Tools can be important, and developer tools can make or break an ecosystem depending on how good they are or how valuable they can be when you're developing within a particular toolset or a particular framework. Nuxt has an incredible Devtools selection that allows you to just get deeper into how you're building a Nuxt application. Whether you have a React Devtools, you're familiar with the term because it's something that is just expected whenever you're building with something, whether that's Nuxt, React, or even Astro has its own little Devtools specific to that framework, specific to that library. But has Livewire had anything? Not really, until now. Wirespy. This is built by Philo Hermans, and it's a sleek new debug bar for Livewire. I already have a Laravel Livewire application scaffolded. I've just used Breeze. I would typically use my starter kit that I have a couple of videos about, but in full transparency, I've had a little bit of an issue. I haven't gotten to look too deep into it, but I think there might be some weird issue within maybe Volt anonymous components within Folio and Wirespy. So we're just going to use this. So first we start by installing Wirespy. That's the composer. Require wire elements / wirespy -dev. Okay, we get all of that up and running. So the cool part about this is no matter what browser you're in, you're just going to be able to open it up. I'm going to run the composer run dev setup that is new within Laravel. We'll go ahead and open up this server. And you see here that we have the ability, if you press Command L, and since I'm in Arc browser, you can also have Command Shift L, or you can do any kind of remapping within the browser itself. But Command L, you'll be able to see any Livewire component that's on the screen. In this case, we have the welcome.navigation. Okay, that all looks good. But you can see here that we have the initial state and then any kind of events, and we can enable hot reload as well. My change page, and now you can even see we have the pages.off.register component specific state. We also have the ability to see updates from components. So if I make some change to this state, let's go ahead and close it. If I was to say my name and I have an email and a password, but it doesn't match, when I press register, what's going to happen is we're going to, of course, get a validation error. But if I was to pull up this Wirespy again, now we see the initial state down here that we see here. But so I can actually like time travel back to that initial state before we had the issue. And you can see we can debug of, okay, what was actually registered in this state during this time. I can push it back to that state. You can see here that now we have those variables back in that time traveled state, and again back to initial state. Stuff like this is really handy when you're debugging. When you have the need for Devtools, all of this stuff comes in handy. So anyways, hot reloading. That's something that is really interesting to me, because if I want to, let's say, my natural tendency after I make a change in the code would be to Command R, refresh it, because if I'm making something and let's say we are changing validation or something like that, or maybe just let's add a new input. Usually, if I make the change and then fill out the form and press register, we're not going to see that updated because of the way Livewire components works. But now that we have hot reloading, we should see that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the code. So I'm going to go to the register component, and let's just say, for example, that we're changing the rules for the name, that this also has to have a min of, 3. And yeah, actually, let's go ahead and now here, I'm going to turn off hot reloading and refresh the page. Okay, we now have a min of 3. We should get some error here. Register name field must be at least 3 characters. Okay, but if I change this to like min of 5, I save that. You see, I'm not going to press Command R. Let's see what happens if I say hi, test@testing.com, testing password, register. You see here, I pressed register. We saw the confirmation happen really quick. This happens to me a lot, whether that's a form or anytime we're sending a Livewire directive to the server. We're requesting an action. We are submitting a form, anything that happens. Usually that's what happens. I believe if I turn on hot reloading, I'm just going to refresh the page just to be safe. I believe now that doesn't happen. So if I was to go back to the code, change this to min of 3 again, I'm saving in my code, going back to the component. And I think this is what hot reloading means. And now if I was to say, hi, josh@testing.com, testing password. Okay, register. Okay, that's not exactly what I thought it was. Maybe it's just hot reloading in the sense that, okay, if I change it to a min of 5 and I was to do that same thing again, so min of 4. So I haven't refreshed this component, but okay, I think that did say a minimum of 5 characters. Let's see if we have a history of it. Don't have a history. Okay, so that's not what hot reloading is. Maybe I can find in the Wirespy repo what hot reloading is. Plus with hot reload features, any changes to your component files automatically refresh. Okay, so it's just the change. And I think that's what we saw when I changed it from 3 to 5. I didn't have to refresh. I do have a tendency, because of what I've learned, of just pressing Command R anytime I make that change. But it's nice to know that, okay, if we're changing things like validation, or if we're changing a message, let's go ahead and let's make a new component and just see what that does. So if I did like a public string message, and we'll just set to this public function change message, this message equals hello world. So we'll have a button with a wire click of change message, and then we'll echo out the message. Okay, undefined variable message. Did I not save that? Okay, there we go. I do have hot reloading on. So let's go ahead and see. Okay, we say change message, hello world. Okay, I'm going to switch back. I'm not going to refresh any of that. I'm just curious. So this message equals, this has been changed. I saved that, switch back. So change message, this has been changed. Okay. I think if I was to turn off hot reloading here and do the same thing, so refresh, we'll say change message, this has been changed. If I switch this to back again, save, switch back again. Okay, so that I don't necessarily, this is probably my fault, or just in the sense that complete user error. I don't necessarily know what the hot reloading is doing in this case. Back again, if I was to change that to hi there. Okay, that works. I don't know, but I do want to get into events because I know that's big. So why don't we go ahead and create a new function that says send event dispatch. Oops. And we'll just say the test wirespy.message. Let's go ahead and send the event here just to see if we get that message in the event page. So send event, refresh events. Okay, here we go. We have an event. So if I was to refresh the page, we don't have the event. Send event, we have the event. This is super helpful to me because events is one of those things where you don't necessarily know if they're there until they're there. In the sense that if I was creating an event like this, usually I would have to then create a new component to then receive the event, or if I'm just receiving it in the same page and then I'm debugging from there, having the event here is super nice. I do like that. If I was to change this to a new message, save, send, new message. Okay. I like it. So yeah, definitely give Wirespy a look, especially if you're looking to, maybe this is probably a great package if you are in the Livewire world, in the PHP world, to say, yeah, this would be something that I could contribute to. I know that would be a great option as well, but it also just is incredibly helpful for those specific elements and specific things that you need that, hey, that extra little bit of debugging will be incredibly useful. For me in particular, I think the two parts that I really appreciate is the events and then the history. I probably wouldn't be changing state too much in the Devtools myself, just because I am very much like, I'm going to type all this out. I could probably automate most of it and use tests or even seeders for that, but most of the time I'm just typing it all out myself. But the the actual history of it, being able to say, I want to switch back to when it was blank or something like that would probably be most useful for me, not actually filling out the information, because I know you can do that. So if I was going into register, because I know if you're doing this, you can change the state right here. And I have a small screen, so it's hard to see, but in the name, for example, I could say Josh, and I could tab, and it automatically fills that out. Email, josh@siri.com, and tab, you fill it out. You see those updates shown here as well, so we can time travel back. So I think this piece itself is really interesting to me. I don't necessarily know when I'm going to be using it a lot, but I know that when the times I actually need it, it's going to come in handy. Hot reload piece, let me know if I'm misunderstanding this completely. I don't know if I fully get what it's doing, but that is mostly just me. And then events is the other piece that I think is incredibly helpful, to be able to have events just show up here so that I can debug, okay, am I actually sending that or dispatching that event like I think? So yeah, tools are incredibly important for any person's workflow, regardless of the framework or library or language that you're using. And I love what Wirespy is doing. I'm excited to see how this improves, because debugging for Livewire just got a whole lot better.